This is Bishop Dale Bronner. Thank you so much for joining our YouTube channel today. If this is a blessing to you, I want to encourage you to like it and then click the subscribe button and then turn on notification. Hit that little notification bell so that you never ever miss another one of our videos. And then if you're in the Metro Atlanta area on a Sunday, check out one of our exhilarating services at 8:30 a.m., 11 a.m., or 6 o'clock p.m. Well, our text for today comes from the 4th chapter of the Gospel according to St. Luke. Reading from the Amplified Version of the Scriptures, you'll there find these words. Verse 16, so he came to Nazareth, speaking of Jesus, where he had been brought up. As was his custom, he entered the synagogue on the Sabbath. That was their worship day. And notice, Jesus made it a custom to go to the house of the Lord. He made it a custom. He entered the synagogue on the Sabbath and stood up to read. And the scroll of the prophet Isaiah was handed to him. And he unrolled the scroll and found the place where it is written, which was Isaiah chapter 61, verse 1 and 2. And he's quoting here now, the Spirit of the Lord is upon me, the Messiah, because he has anointed me to preach the good news to the poor. He has sent me to announce release, pardon, forgiveness to the captives, and recovery of sight to the blind. That means those that have lost their vision, it's time to get your vision back. Recovery. To set free those who are oppressed, downtrodden, bruised, crushed by tragedy, and to proclaim the favorable year of the Lord, the day when salvation and the favor of God abound greatly. Then he rolled up the scroll, having stopped in the middle of the verse, gave it back to the attendant, and sat down to teach. And the eyes of all of those in the synagogue were attentively fixed on him. Today we're talking about God's recovery plan. God's recovery plan. God has a plan to recover everything that has been lost. He's going to restore us back to the Garden of Eden days. Everything that the first Adam messed up, the last Adam, Jesus Christ, sets back in order. It is a part of the kingdom of God in heaven coming down on the earth, making things right, redeeming it back to God's original plan. God wins in the end. And I don't know about you, but whenever you recover something that was lost, you look back at that you originally had with different eyes of gratitude. You don't know how good sleeping all night long is until you have trouble sleeping all night. And it's when you look back at what you originally had, you look back at it with different eyes of gratitude when you understand really the whole principles of recovery. There's a looking at this thing with different eyes of gratitude. Now, I shared some things with you in the last session that God is recovering in this season. I just want to give you a quick review of that. Some review points here are this. Number one is that there's recovery begins with relationship with God. It begins with relationship with God. Hear me carefully. That until you make peace with God, you can't make peace with yourself and you can't make peace with anybody else. Get the source right first. All recovery ultimately begins with your relationship with God. Get right with God. Make peace with God so you can have peace with yourself, because if you deal with a person who doesn't have peace with themselves, they cause hell in your life. And all of the people who understand what I'm saying said, when you make peace with God, you can find peace within yourself. And when you have peace within yourself, you become a peace thermometer in all of your relationship. But recovery begins with relationship with God. The second thing is that in this season, God will begin to recover the awe of who he is and what he does. He will restore the awe of who he is and what he does, where people will once again begin to fear the Lord. When the early apostles went about working, God confirmed their word with signs and wonders, and there was awe that filled the people. And God's going to restore that all. The third thing, in this season, God will restore spiritual vibrancy. He will restore spiritual vibrancy. Sometimes you can burn out because you don't do enough of what refreshes your soul. And that's why in Psalm 23, it talks about how he leads me beside the still water. He restores my soul. He helps me to get my mind back. He helps me to get my fire back. He restores my equilibrium, my spiritual equilibrium. He brings me back into equanimity. He begins to do some things that calibrate me once again. He restores my soul, gets my emotions, my hormones, everything that's been out of balance. God restores that particular thing, and we're going to find a spiritual vibrancy that we might call revival, so to speak, that is returning back to the people of God. And then the fourth thing is, in this season, God will restore lives. We saw what he did in the life of Ruth, who was an old woman, and she was a widow, and she had lost her 2 sons. She didn't feel like she had anything to live for, but God restored her life. The fifth thing is that in this season, God will restore health. God will restore health. He said it in Jeremiah 30:17 that I will give you back your health and heal your wounds. I'll give you back your health and I will heal your wounds, the things that hurt you, the pains that you're dealing with. I don't care whether it's a father wound, a mother wound, whether you're wounded by a friend, whether you have church hurt. God says, I will heal your wounds. I will heal your wounds. Stop looking to human beings to heal what only God can heal. God said, I'll heal your wounds. But I want you to realize that in this season, we're entering into a time of a refreshing that has been orchestrated by God himself. A refreshing. A refreshing is coming to the people of God. A refreshing. God spoke prophetically about it in Isaiah chapter 43, verse 19 and 20. Notice that in the word of the Lord. For I'm about to do something new. See, I have already begun. Do you not see it? I will make a pathway through the wilderness. I will create rivers in the dry wasteland. Where you felt dry, God says, I'm getting ready to refresh you. I'm getting ready to bring water into your life and restore life. If you're going to be youthful, you have to keep yourself hydrated. God says, I'm going to send water your way. I'm getting ready to give you a spiritual IV. And I'm getting ready to hydrate your whole being and renew your youth. And notice what he said in verse 20. The wild animals in the field will thank me. Even wild stuff that you have never been able to tame before. God says, listen, the jackals and the owls too, for giving them water in the desert. I'm getting ready to refresh that wild side of you. That wild stuff that you've never been able to tame. He says, yes, I will make rivers in the dry wasteland so my chosen people can be refreshed. There's a refreshing, my God, that is coming to the people of God. I mean, you don't know what a gift refreshment is until you've been worn out, dehydrated, tired, and worn out by bad news and bad attitudes and bad situations and bad money kind of situations. But when God says, I will refresh you, my God, that is a refreshing that comes. God lifts your spirit. It lifts your heart, your whole attitude, your gratitude. It starts lifting you, refreshing you, and letting you realize, I can make it. I can make it. And this is what God is doing. But, you know, notice how he said, I'm about to do something new. You know why God was telling Israel that? Because they were in a bad situation. They had been enslaved. They'd gone in captivity. And all that they could realize was all of the injustice that had been done to them. All of the depression and the oppression that they had been through. They had been through brokenness. They had been through deprivation. They had been through starvation. They had been with going without. And they couldn't get out of their minds all of the negative stuff that they had been through. Have you ever been trying to get people to move forward and they're still hung up with something back in the back? God is saying, wake up, baby boy. Wake up, baby girl. I'm getting ready to do something new. It is something that your mind, because you've been so used to having things go wrong in the past. Let me give you a picture of it this way. It is God's way of saying that I'm talking to people who have always attempted to do things and it was going real good for a while.
And everything was looking really promising. And right when you were just about to lay hold on it, just as you were about to close the deal, bam, the whole thing falls through. Have you ever been there? And now it makes you afraid to even trust and hope that things will work out in your favor, because every time you've gotten close to the blessing, bam, it falls through. Something happens to the deal. But this time, God is saying, this is a year of recovery. He said, behold, I'm going to do a new thing. Your love life that has been in shambles, and every time you met him, boy, bam, something wrong with this joker, something wrong with this witch. What is the world that's going on this time? God says, behold, if you can get over the bad experiences of your past, he says, I'm about to bring you into a brand new refreshing of something new that I'm going to do. I'm going to send water in the desert, and this time it's going to be a good experience, because everybody that you've dealt with in your past has let you down, has disappointed you. But God says, if you can get that out of your mind and set your faith and your hope on things that are eternal, that I have established for you, if you can get a new picture, a fresh picture of what I am trying to do in your life, God says, can you not see it? He said, I've already begun it. I always begin in a place and in a time where you can't even see what I'm doing, but it's in progress. When you do a good workout in the gym, a good ab workout, you don't see any instant results, but the results are in progress. Stay with it. Stay disciplined. Stay hope-filled. Stay consistent. And I declare to you, God said, hey, this time, you were on the diet last time, it fell through. You were doing well for a few weeks, you fell off the wagon. You were going to the gym, fell off the wagon. But behold, I will do a new thing. A new thing. He says, see, I've already begun. It's already in progress. The miracle is already in progress. It's in progress. And let me just tell you this, as God is refreshing us. There are two things that I saw in the realm of the Spirit. One was a microscope, which is designed to give you a close-up of stuff that's happening in you. And the other is a telescope to give you an image of what God is doing in the distance, in the vision that he's prepared for you down the road. Tele means distance. Scope means to look. Telescope, it is a distant look of what God has already got prepared for you down the road. The microscope, and I'm just here to tell you, hear me prophetically. Anytime that your life becomes microscopic, focusing in, the devil lives in the detail. You'll take little things and blow them up and make them look big. Whenever you live your life only by a microscope, depression is the result. But when you live by a telescope, hope is the result. Depression on one end, hope on the other. When you look through a microscope, you're depressed by what you see. When you look through a telescope, you're refreshed by what you see. God's bringing in refreshment to people that have become weary, even with good news. Don't want to believe it because you're afraid that you're going to set yourself up for another disappointment. God says, not this time. Not this time. Not this time. Behold, I'm doing a new thing. Please understand, one of the reasons that you need the microscope and the telescope, because they help you to discover things. The microscope can help you to discover what's wrong up close. The telescope helps you to discover what God has prepared for you down the road. Recovery begins with discovery. And you cannot recover what you have not discovered as a part of your inheritance. This is a year of recovery. How do you recover something that you don't even know you lost? How do you recover it? if you don't even know it's lost? How do you know? God's recovery plan includes a few things. Number one, prioritization. Prioritization. That is reordering in your life what is important. Priorities deal with what's important. You prioritize your values, what's valuable to you. It is prioritization. And that's why God will sometimes send a crisis into your world, because crisis always creates clarity of what's important. So when in God's recovery plan, prioritization. Number two, passion. And you know, passion comes out of pain. The word passion literally means pain. Now, let me tell you what I heard God say very clearly, unequivocally. I heard him. He said, this is not the year to follow your passions. This is the year to follow his presence. You know why? Because you can be passionate about sin. You can be passionate about evil, about doing something that is not the will of God for your life. Don't just follow your passions, follow his presence. We've got to have a resolve in our own hearts that, God, if you're not in it, I don't want to be in it. If your presence is not there, I don't want to go there. Don't just follow your passion, follow God's presence, follow his presence. But passion comes out of your pain. And whenever God is recovering some things, he's going to recover your passions. Sometimes when you've been hurt because you love too hard, you're afraid to love again. Love is a passion. And God's going to recover that and sanctify it and allow you to be able to trust and love again, because there's a healing that comes in the restoration. And so passion, that which is birthed out of pain, passion. Number three, people. God's recovery plan often involves people. Prioritization, passion, it involves people. God will restore people that have been lost, people that have gone. And sometimes he doesn't restore with the same person. He restores with other people better. Job lost all 10 of his children. God restored with 10 more children. They weren't the same people, but it was a blessing. God used people to bless them. You see, personnel is always a problem. Right personnel is always a solution. And so God will bring in the right personnel into your life to be able to support. Because if God gives you a vision, and if you can do it by yourself, the vision didn't come from God. God's vision for your life will always involve other people. It'll involve other people. It's bigger than you. He'll give you an assignment that you need people to help you with. So people become a part of God's restorative plan in our life. God's restoration plan also involves possession. There's some things that you've lost, possession, whether houses and land, whether it's jewelry, whether there are estate things that are coming back to you. Possessions. Number five, pursuit. He's restoring our pursuit. That's a go-getter. Just because you lost something, you got to have the energy. I mean, you see your diamond that fell out of your ring that's over in the mud, you get over there and get it. Pursue it. Go get it. Climb over the fence. Rip the drain out of the sink. Pursue it. There's got to be pursuit. The proof of desire is pursuit. Pursuit. Have you ever noticed that if you have unclaimed money sitting somewhere in an account, they don't just call you and chase you down? It'll sit there unclaimed. You got to pursue it. Nobody's going to chase you down to get money back to you. Isn't it interesting? I travel to other countries, and some of them have what they call a VAT tax. And every time you go someplace and buy stuff, they add the VAT tax out. Then you got to stand in a long line at the airport trying to make it inconvenient for you to get your money back. Hey, what about this? Why don't I just show you my passport and you not charge me to begin with? I'm not a citizen here. Why should I be paying taxes over here? A VAT tax. And they know that most people are too lazy to stand in line. But you got to pursue it. You ought to say, you know what? No. This is my money. This is a refund. I'm going to pursue it. I'm getting everything that's coming to me. Pursuit, that takes pursuit. Number 7, a purposeful pause. 6, a purposeful pause. 6, purposeful pause. Just a pause. This is a time to unplug. Isn't it crazy that our devices, the digital world, you have to plug it in to charge it, but God's people have to unplug in order to recharge. We unplug. It's a purposeful pause where you turn the television off, the computer, the tablet, the cell phone. You just unplug. Get an old-fashioned book. Go out and sit in nature. Take a walk and look at God's beauty. Unplug. Number 7 is prayer. Prayer. Prioritization, passion, people, possessions, pursuit, a purposeful pause, prayer. 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 When God gets ready to really restore and recover things that have been lost, prayer recovers. Prayer always precedes revival. Always. Without exception, prayer precedes revival. If God's going to do a revival in your life, in your home, in your family, in your business, in your finances, it begins with prayer. Prayer, 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 prayer. I love this quote by Billy Graham. He says, we are the most informed people in the history of civilization, and yet the most confused. Though our heads are crammed with knowledge, our hearts are empty. That's a problem in our world today. In the information age, we have it available at our fingertips. With artificial intelligence, we're the most informed people in the history of civilization, and yet the most confused in our identity and our understanding of who we are and what we are called to do in the earth. Though our heads are crammed with knowledge, our hearts are empty. Now, here are a few more things that I know divinely and prophetically that God is recovering in this season. Number 1, God will restore you the years that were taken away from you. The years. That has to do with timing and what you could have done in that time. Have you ever noticed if they found that some person has been locked up for many years unjustly, and then they get this compensation for all of the years that they've been unjustly sitting in jail because it was proven by DNA evidence that they were not the one who committed this crime, and now they've got to make restitution to this person. They have robbed you of the years and what you could have earned and produced in that time. This is what God is saying. I will restore to you, Joel chapter 2 verse 25. So I will restore to you the years that the swarming locust has eaten, the crawling locust, the consuming locust, stuff that just, these are pests that eat up your time. And the chewing locusts, my great army, which I sent among you. God sent an army among them for judgment, but God still loved them. He says, I was judging you only to try to correct you, not to kill you, not to destroy you. And so this is why he's saying, now I will restore to you all of the years, the stuff that they ate up. God says, I'm going to restore it. And that's why we can't afford to waste time with things that don't matter in our world. We cannot afford to waste time with things that don't matter. Time is a marker for events and for change. But God sits outside of time because God is not an event, and neither is he affected by time. He's not subject to that. He's the God who was, is, and is to come. And he can never be confined by any dimension of time. In fact, it was God in Joshua chapter 10 and verse 13 who made time stand still. Only God can do that. Only God can give you back time. And sometimes the way that God gives time back to you is that he can preserve your youth, number 1. Number 2, he can allow you to get more done in less time. You know how if you're sitting down, if you're writing something, and if it normally would take you 2 hours to write it, and God can let you write it in 30 minutes. You know, he'll allow you, empower you to get more done in less time. That's the way he works. He restores our time. And then I want you to notice a restoration plan of God that he had for Judah and Ephraim in Zephaniah, because this brings us to point number 2 here, that God will also restore his covenant people who are prisoners of hope. God will restore his covenant people who are prisoners of hope. Now look at Zechariah chapter 9 and verse 11 through 12. As for you, because of the blood of your covenant, I will send you prisoners from the empty, waterless pits. Return to your stronghold, prisoners who now have hope. Today I declare that I will return to you a double portion. Isn't that amazing that God says, I'm going to return to you a double portion of everything you lost? That was the law of God. It was the law of Moses that governed the people, that if a person stole from you, Exodus chapter 22 and verse 4, they had to return double. You don't just return what you stole, you got to add interest to it. He said, you're going to pay double for everything you stole. And if you really wanted to, you thought the double was bad. If you ever check out Proverbs chapter 6 and verse 31, he says when a thief is caught stealing something, they had to return it, repay it 7 times. 7 times. It's amazing. But God has a restoration of people that are prisoners of hope. That no matter how negative your situation is, no matter how negative it looks, how gloomy it looks, when you are a prisoner of hope, you're able to be like Abraham, who believed in hope against hope. When doctors are telling you that you're going to die, when you've got faced with a bankruptcy situation and it looks like your credit has died and that you will never ever be able to own a piece of property again. You know, God is able, if you can have the hope, if you can get your telescope out. If you need hope, get your telescope. If you need hope, get your telescope, because it can show you that distant view of something. What is faith if you don't have hope? Hope is the goal setter for faith. Faith doesn't have anything to do if you don't have a hope. Faith is the substance of things hoped for. It's the goal setter. It sets the goal. It says, faith, this is what you go after. So it's a goal setter. It's a goal setter. And whenever you're recovering, just like from any kind of a physical workout, it involves refueling. It involves rebuilding of the tissue that has been broken down, and it involves rehydrating. That's why God said, I'm going to send water in the dry places in the desert. I'm going to send water. A refueling, you got to put some energy in. You got to eat something. And it has a rebuilding. It's through that eating that it then begins to take some of the amino acids and build. So there's a refueling, so that there's a rebuilding, and then there's a rehydrating as God is restoring you. There's some things that God is going to add to you. He adds to you. Here's number 3. In this season, God will restore strength. In this season, God will restore strength. Notice Isaiah chapter 40 and verse 29 through 31 in the modern English version. He gives power to the faint, and to those who have no might, he increases strength. To those who have no might, he increases strength. To those who have no might, he increases strength. Ever feel weak? And notice what he says in verse 30. Even the youths shall faint and be weary, and the young men shall utterly fall. But notice, but those who wait upon the Lord shall renew their strength. They shall mount up with wings as eagles. They shall run and not be weary. They shall walk and not faint. God's going to renew your strength. He's going to renew your strength. He's going to renew your strength in your ankles, in your hips, in your knees. He's going to renew the strength of your mind. I'm just telling you, this is a time of God to renew your strength. Be strong in the Lord and in the power thereof. Be strong in the Lord, in the Lord. He's going to renew your strength. God is going to renew your strength. This is a time of the renewal of strength, supernaturally and divinely, by our wonderful, loving Father. And here's the 4th thing that God is doing in this new season. In this season, God will restore people to their proper position. He will restore people to their proper position. You ever felt like you were in a funk because you were out of position? God's getting ready now, particularly when we have been in a system of injustice. If you were pulled out, if you were falsely accused, if you lost this, and you know that you have the capacity to be able to do it. Here's how I know it, because God brought this verse to me in Isaiah chapter 40, verse 4 and 5. Notice this. Every valley shall be exalted. See, that's the low place. God says, I'm going to bring you up. And every mountain, those that have been in the high place and hill, it's going to be brought low. And the crooked places shall be made straight, and the rough places smooth. See, God's getting ready to write some stuff in our system now. He's getting ready to correct something. Every valley shall be exalted. Every high place is getting ready to come down. God says, I'm going to shift some stuff now. The folks that's been at the bottom, hey, you're coming up. You're coming up. You've been down now. You're coming up. Every valley shall be exalted. Every mountain and hill is going to be brought low. The crooked places, God says, I'm getting ready to straighten some stuff out. And the rough places, I'm getting ready to make it plain now. Notice, that the glory of the Lord shall be what? Revealed. And all flesh shall see it together, for the mouth of the Lord has spoken it. God says, I'm getting ready to do this for my glory. It's for your good, but it's for my glory. God says, I'm getting ready to equalize some stuff now. Because you've been always down here and wondering, Lord, what's wrong with me? And God says, I'm getting ready to change some stuff. I'm getting ready to change some stuff now. I'm getting ready to shift some stuff. Every valley, the low places. I'm getting ready to take some of the third world countries, the folks that have been living on the periphery of life and not even living under a decent livable wage and can't even have clean water. I'm getting ready to write some stuff now on a global scale. Only God can do this. He's going to balance some stuff. I'm getting ready to bring Africa up now. I'm just here to tell you, God is a God of justice. Give him time, and don't lose your hope. Be a prisoner of hope. That if you've been down here and it looks like things have always worked against you, if they've always worked against your agenda, give it time. God will work it out. He'll straighten it out. He's going to take the low things and bring it up, and he's going to take the high things and bring it down. God's going to equalize some things. There's going to be a shifting. The landscape of what we've been seeing getting ready to change. God is an awesome God. People are getting ready to shift into their proper position. That's about shifting in position. It's about taking your place back. It's like the prodigal son who was in the low place of the pig pen. And now God says, hey, come on back here. Bring the ring on it. Bring shoes on his feet. Bring a robe. It's a time for restoration for people that's been out in the far country. You've been out here wilding out, but God says, I still love you. I still love you. God's love is not based on whether you've been in the church all the time. You can be in the world in the worst sin pit, and God says, you know what, I still love you. There's nothing that you can do. He says, you didn't earn my love to begin with, and you can't unearn it. He said, I loved you before you went out there. I loved you before you knew me. And I still love you because he created us. Then notice Micah chapter 7 and verse 8. Do not gloat over me, my enemies. For though I fall, I will rise again. I'm telling you, God's restoring position. Though you fall, some of you have been on the ground. Some of you have been in a low place because you've fallen. You've been in a fallen state for a while, but I will rise again. I will rise again. Though I sit in darkness, haven't been able to see anything, the Lord will be my light. I'm telling you, this is a time that God is going to restore you to a place in position. He's going to restore your position. You were up. You see, that's why he says, though I fall. Though I fall, I will rise again. That was a message to his enemies. He says, listen, don't gloat over me. Don't think because I'm down that I'm out. Don't count me out. I might have fallen. I might have fallen out of place. I might have fallen out of my position. But he said, don't count me out. Don't count me out. He said, I'm still there. I'm still there. And if you'll trust me, if you'll trust me, I'll bring you back up. He says, enemies, listen, don't gloat, don't laugh too hard. Because I'll be back, and I'm telling you, that's why you have to be kind to people. Because the very people that you pass on your way up, you may pass on your way coming back down. You have to be kind to people. You don't ever know that the people that you are teaching and the people that you're serving, they might have to serve you one day and come back. And that's why it just pays to be kind to everybody that you meet, because positions are changing. And while in one position that you are here and you're taking care of things and leading them and driving them around, somebody might have to come and drive you one day and help you put your clothes on one day and help to feed you one day. God has a way of shifting things. That's why it pays to be kind to people while you are in an upward position, because you may not always be there, and you got to trust in the faithfulness of God, that God, you're making provisions for me, because God's got a telescope. He really does. And for those of you that have some age on you and you feel like you still have a few things that you haven't gotten done yet, the beauty of age and wisdom is that you can do it faster than younger people. There are some things that when you have been through hell and high water and you get ready to write, you're writing out of a different place. It's like, sweetheart, you got to go through some other stuff in order to get here. There's some sounds that you can't even produce in your singing until you've been through something. There's no shortcut there. And there are some things that you're able to put together because it's not your first rodeo. You've been around this block a whole lot of times. And you've seen a lot of stuff and learned a lot of stuff and understand a lot of stuff. So when you come to put something together, you're not looking at it for the first time. And you can do it in a moment. I've had so many people that they ask me, they say, Bishop Bronner, how long does it take you to put a message together? 40 years. "40 years, 40 years. There have been some of my messages that I bowed my knee, and in 5 minutes, God downloaded every word of it. 5 minutes. But I couldn't do that when I was 16. And that's what I'm saying. When you get a certain age, God will equip you and empower you to get more done in less time. The young are strong, but the old know the way. And a young person will come close to something, and because they don't know what's on the other side, they'll come back and because they get impatient. And the older person understands that if I just keep drilling right here, I've already tapped here. I know there's a sound behind what I just touched. That if I keep my nose to the ground, if I stay faithful here, if I keep looking at what God has shown me, because I've got a telescopic view. When you live the years, when you look back, it's a long distance view, and I can see a bigger picture. But when you're in the mountain molehill stage of a microscope, you're micro. Age makes you tele. Youth makes you micro. And that's why old men dream dreams, where we can see how visions connect with a dream. Martin Luther King didn't say, I have a vision. He said, I have a dream. And the dreams employ the individual destinies or visions of younger people. And it makes it all work together in the city of God, in the community of God. It is a larger viewpoint of where all of these individual gifts now can work together in harmony. That happens by a telescopos. It comes from the distant view of what you see by God's divine telescope. The telescope inspires hope. The microscope gets you depressed because you only see how big the problem is. It only magnifies the disease that was eating in your body. But the telescope says, by his stripes I'm healed. And we are in a day now that when God is causing us to look through the lens of the telescope, and it's inspiring us out of the valley of despair. Out of the valley of despair, you're able to hewn a stone of hope. And if you can just get the hope, you realize when you have the telescope, it doesn't end here. It doesn't end here. Don't let your life end where a tragedy happened. It doesn't end here. If somebody died and left you, it doesn't end here. Look out of your telescope and you'll see that God has prepared something absolutely amazing for you. This is God's recovery plan. I pray that you got something out of the word of the Lord today. Hallelujah to the Lamb. Hallelujah to the Lamb of God. Be seated for just a moment. I just want to ask you to just bow your heads, close your eyes. If you're joining us through the live stream today, God loves you. He has a plan for your redemption. Some of you have just been majoring in microscopic detail, and you're exasperated. It's got you into overthinking, and it has worn you out. It seems insurmountable, too big to handle, and you've got too many painful memories of things that have gone wrong in your life. And if you can't get that picture out, you're destined to repeat it. And that's why God says, behold, I will do a new thing. Shall you not see it? Shall you not know it? He said, I've already begun it. But all change for you begins with a decision. All change begins with a decision. Nothing will change until you make a decision and follow through on that decision. I've taught you before that the word decision literally means the state of cutting off. When you make a decision for Jesus, it means that you cut off every other option that doesn't look like him. You're saying, Lord, I give myself fully to you, that I belong to you, and I want to give myself fully to you. In this new year, nothing will be new if you don't make new decisions, new commitments, and allow the telescopic view of God to fill your heart. You've been caught up in a microscope world, looking at minutia, little moving particles, disease, bacteria, focusing in on that. And God is saying, listen, lift up your heads, O ye gates, and be ye lifted up, ye everlasting doors, and the King of glory will come in. I don't know about you, but I am a prisoner of hope, no matter how glim things become. God can give you an ability to have a hope beyond what doctors say, beyond what economists say. The hope that comes from having a distance view that, Father, I will lift up mine eyes into the hills. From whence comes my help? My help comes from the Lord. There's somebody who's bigger than you and I. His name is Jesus. He loves us.
We hope that you enjoyed that message. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and then press the notification bell so that you don't miss another one of our videos. And if you want to partner with us, click the Give Now button. Thank you for what you do.